Hey, this is SJ. The government wants women to have babies. That's what I heard. I heard that the government wants women to have babies because the birth rates, and I've spoken about this before in other videos, the birth rates are decreasing for black women and white women. But I think the birth rates are lower for white women than they are black women, I believe. Don't quote me on it, but I believe that the birth rates are lower for white women. And the government, of course, the white people they want them white women. That's why they outlawed abortion or they're trying to outlaw it in a lot of states because they want the white women to have babies. You know, they want white women to have these babies because their biggest fear is the white population, the white people becoming a minority, and that's their biggest fear. And so they want these white women to have these babies. They don't really care about whether black women have babies or not. Their main concern is the white women. They want the white women to have babies. And so the birth rates, particularly for Caucasian women, are plummeting. And they want women to have babies. And they're trying to give, I heard that they're allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly because I don't know for sure, but I just heard this from another content creator, that they're going to give women $5,000 to have a baby. $5,000 ain't long enough. That ain't no money. Some people can blow $5,000 in a day. More like maybe $100,000. If you offer $100,000, you might get somebody that'll bite. Let me tell you something. A woman would have to be insane, particularly a single woman, to have a baby right now with that orange man in office. A woman would have to be insane to have a baby right now. Seriously. Unless you are making six figures, and I've said this in many other videos, unless you have a stable, secure marriage mate, and even that's no guarantee because these men change on you. They flip the script on you. Or if you're making, and you're making six figures. Either between the both of y'all, a combination of six figures. I don't recommend no woman having no baby without a husband. So a stable, secure marriage mate, and six figures, and good health insurance, and stable employment. Well, that ain't no guarantee either nowadays. If you don't have that, forget about it. Don't pop out no babies. Don't pop out no babies. And I was looking at Burbs and Bougie, and she was like, let the birth rate plummet. Hell. Okay? I've already made my contribution. I've contributed 2 human beings to this planet and 2 grandbabies so far. I've already gave my contribution. They ain't getting no more out of me. I'm pushing 60. They ain't getting no more babies out of me. I've already put my contribution. I gave 2 human beings. I brought 2 human beings here. Okay. That's all you're getting out of me. You ain't getting no more babies out of me. That shit was sold years ago. After I had my youngest son, I already set it up with the doctor and everything. Get my tubes tied, and I already set it up to get it done in the hospital and everything. And so I got it done 3 hours after I had my youngest son. And I tell you, I was not going to leave that hospital until it was done. I kid you not. I was not going to leave that hospital until it was done. So they did it at 3 hours after I had my son. They hauled me in there, and I got her done. And years ago, I had a cyst on my ovary, and I had to have an ovary removed. And they was like, well, you want us to tie the other one just in case it carries? I looked up, I said, hook me up. I had them rolling in that room. I had them rolling. I said, hook me up. Because they did this they numbed me just from the waist down. They said, you want us to tie the other one just in case? I said, hook me up. I was not leaving that hospital. I kid you not. I was not going to leave that hospital until it was the done deal. So, that shit was sailed years ago. And now I'm menopausal. Postmenopausal. No, correction. I'm postmenopausal. So ain't no more monthly. I ain't had no monthly in years. So that ship is sailed, baby. Ain't got no man either. And I've been celibate for 20 years now. So that ship is sailed. That ship is sailed. ain't no more babies coming out of this. So, but the young ladies, I wouldn't recommend the young ladies. A woman would have to be insane to have a baby with that man in office. Would he making all these cuts? How you expect for women to have babies and he making all these cuts? He cutting housing. He cutting Section 8. He didn't cut food stamps. He tried to rip off Medicaid. He tried to cut Medicaid. The judge had to stop that. How in the world are women going to have babies and then you cutting all the resources? How do you want women to have a baby and you want them to have the babies, but then you don't want them to have the provision once they get here? Okay, you're cutting housing, you're making all these cuts and stuff like that. Food prices is through the roof because of the stupid tariff stuff he's doing. What in the world? I can only imagine what formula costs now. Hit me up in that comment section. You know how much formula and diapers cost. Formula's got to be through the roof. Babies, remember there was a shortage a couple of years back? There was a baby formula shortage. Yes. Women couldn't even hardly find it. So it's got to be through the roof. Now I know when my son was little, was a baby, it was high. But I tried to buy the cheap one, because he was on Similac. Was it Similac? And then I would go to Kmart's and I'd get the generic brand of that. Oh yeah, oh well, judge me all you want, but yeah, because I can only breastfeed. I breastfed a little bit, but I had to go back to work, so I had to stop. So I did the best I could. So judge me if you want to. The sister was on a tight budget. But anywho, how are women supposed to have these babies? And they talking about dropping $5,000. That's a joke. $5,000 ain't enough money to pop out no baby. Come on now. Some women if you go to the furniture store, you can blow that in one day. $5,000 ain't no money. Maybe if you offer $100,000, they might think about it. Yeah, $100,000 they might think about it, but not no $5,000. That ain't no money. That's not no incentive for women to have no baby. In the United States don't have. Now some of the other countries have, but the United States still don't have paid maternity leave. They still don't have paid maternity leave. Some of these young ladies having to go back to work before the 6 weeks is even up. I know my grandson's mom had to go back to work before the 6 weeks was even up. I'm like, girl, I tried to talk her out of it. I said, girl, you got to let your body heal. You can't go back to work. I don't have a choice. She felt she didn't have a choice. She said she didn't have a choice. That's sad. That's sad. That's really sad. They don't have paid maternity leave in this country. In some other countries, I think it's Norway. I want to say it's Norway. They have paid maternity leave for a whole year. Paid maternity year from the government. That the woman can take off for a whole entire year after having the baby. Yes, a whole year. Not here in the United States. As far as I'm concerned, that's inhumane because 6 weeks is not enough. Even if you do take the 6 weeks, I took off 6 weeks with my youngest, and it wasn't enough time. It wasn't enough time. I wish I could have stayed home longer with him, at least till he was 6 months old. You know, I felt like a lousy mother going back to work after 6 weeks, but I didn't have a choice. But in Norway, they have paid maternity leave for up to a year. The women can stay home with their babies for a year until they're a year old. Yes. United States ain't got nothing like that. No, it used to be that, before work work welfare reform. Welfare reform, I think, was in 1997. But before that, women could, they would, welfare would pay for you to stay home for a while with your babies. But as soon as welfare reform took place, they had a work requirement, which means women had to go back to work. That's why I don't understand why these people keep saying that women are on, particularly black women, are on welfare. No, because they had welfare reform back in 1997, which is in most states they passed that, and there's a work requirement, and you have to go back to work after you have your baby. And I think, like I said, that's inhumane. 6 weeks is not long enough. And some of these women are having to go back to work before the 6 weeks is even up. That's inhumane. That's inhumane. Women need to have the opportunity to bond with their baby. I had to cut off breastfeeding. I had to cut off because I was working at a county nursing home at the time, and they mandated and stuff like that. And I breastfed my son for about 2 or 3 months, and I had to cut it off. I had to stop it because pumping wasn't an option, because it wasn't an option. This wasn't an option. I had to go back to work full time, and then I was getting mandated and stuff, and it just wasn't. Yeah, so I had to stop nursing him. I think I only nursed him for 3 months. See, a woman might want, and she might want to nurse her baby for at least a year, breastfeed for at least a year. They should have paid maternity leave here in the United States for up to a year. Just in case a woman wants to breastfeed her baby, women shouldn't have to be forced to go back to work after 6 weeks, and you have to stop nursing, or you got to pump, and sometimes that doesn't work out. It depends on the woman. Some women can't get that milk out from no breast pump, and it just got to be too overwhelming to me, so I just stopped nursing. And I felt bad, but I didn't have no choice. I had to go back to work. Who else was going to pay the bills? So there's no incentive for women to have a baby. There's no incentive for women to have no babies. And with that orange man making all these cuts and stuff like that, no. There's absolutely no incentive for women to have babies. These men out here tripping. These men don't want to be fathers. Now, you got some that's a good father that'll stick, but that's few and far between. And then you don't ever know when they're going to flip the script on you. And then you look up and you wind up a single mother. A woman got to make sure she can afford to take care of that baby on her own, just in case. I wouldn't recommend no woman having no baby. No. And I thought about it. I said, well, women have had babies in worse times than this. Women were having babies during the Depression. Women were popping out babies during the Depression and all that. But, yeah, maybe that might be the case. But I wouldn't recommend, that. The food prices are through the roof. Housing costs are through the roof. Wages are not increasing. I don't even know how they're going to survive. I look at these young ladies with these babies, and I'm like, how they going to, by the grace of God, I guess. But I wouldn't recommend, unless you got a stable marriage mate and you're making 6 figures, I wouldn't recommend that you pop out no babies. Let the birth rate go down. Let it go down. That's their problem. They the one want to cut everything. Okay, hit me up in that comment section. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. I heard that the government wants women to pop out babies. If you have daughters, would you recommend that your daughters have babies? Hit me up in that comment section. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. Make sure you please hit that like button and that notification bell, so every time I do a video, you'll be notified. And please hit that like button to get my algorithm up. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Be blessed.